The day of the concert finally arrived. Anna woke early, her stomach full of excitement and nervous energy. She had practiced for weeks, but now it was time to face her biggest challenge. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple yet elegant outfit. Every detail mattered, but she did not want to appear flashy. Her music, not her clothes, was the focus. When she arrived at the concert hall, Anna could hardly believe her eyes. The hall was enormous, with rows of seats stretching far back and bright lights illuminating the stage. She walked slowly toward the piano, her heart pounding. The instrument looked more magnificent than any she had ever played. The keys gleamed under the lights, and she could feel their history, as if they had waited for her touch. Backstage, Daniel met her with a warm smile. "You are ready," he said kindly. "Remember, it is not about impressing anyone. It is about sharing your music. Let the piano guide you and the rest will follow." Anna nodded. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, recalling the melodies she had practiced countless times. The quiet moments of preparation, the long nights at the restaurant, and the encouragement she had received all led to this moment. Soon, the announcer's voice echoed through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our special performer tonight, Anna." A hush fell over the audience. Anna walked to the stage slowly, trying to steady her hands. The bright lights made the hall appear even larger, and she felt the weight of all the eyes upon her. She sat on the piano bench and placed her fingers on the keys. For a brief moment she felt frozen. But then she remembered Daniel's words. She let the music flow naturally. The first notes were soft, careful, and precise. Anna felt the audience listening, yet she did not let fear control her. Slowly her confidence grew. The music began to fill the hall, each note carrying her emotions, her story, and her dreams. The audience was captivated. Some leaned forward in their seats, completely absorbed. Children's eyes widened as the melody wrapped around them. Adults smiled quietly, touched by the sincerity and beauty of Anna's performance. Anna's fingers moved faster, playing a part of the melody she had added herself. Her music was no longer just practiced notes, it had become her voice. She poured her heart into every key, feeling joy, hope, and determination in each sound. Daniel watched from the side, proud and impressed. He could see the transformation in Anna. The nervous young waitress who had once walked timidly through a restaurant had become a confident artist. She owned the stage with grace and passion. Minutes passed, yet it felt as if time had slowed. Anna was fully immersed in the music. Every note resonated in the hall, echoing through hearts and minds. She played with emotion, precision, and confidence, knowing that this was her moment. Finally, she reached the last note of her piece. She pressed it gently, letting it linger in the air. Silence filled the hall for a heartbeat, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then the audience erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, powerful, and full of appreciation. Anna smiled, feeling tears of happiness in her eyes. She stood, bowed slightly, and received the applause with quiet humility. She had done it. She had shared her music, her story, and her heart with hundreds of people, and they had responded with admiration and joy. Backstage, Daniel approached her once more. "You were incredible," he said softly. "Your music touched everyone here tonight. I knew you could do it." Anna nodded, still catching her breath. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never imagined something like this could happen." Daniel smiled. "This is only the beginning. You have a rare gift, Anna, and now the world knows it." That night, Anna left the concert hall with a feeling she had never known before. She had faced her fears, shared her talent, and discovered a new confidence. The applause, the smiles, and the warmth of the audience stayed with her as she walked home. For the first time in her life, Anna realized that dreams could come true, and that courage and determination could open doors to a future she had never imagined. The morning after the concert, Anna woke with a sense of excitement she had never felt before. The applause and cheers of the audience still echoed in her mind. She could hardly believe what had happened. Her music had reached hundreds of people, and their appreciation filled her with joy. When Anna arrived at the restaurant, she noticed something had changed. A few regular customers greeted her warmly, but new faces were also waiting to see the young pianist who had captivated the city. Some had heard about her performance through friends, and others had read short notes in local newspapers. Word of her talent was spreading fast. Anna worked her usual shifts, serving food and drinks, but she could not stop smiling quietly to herself. Each time she passed the piano, she felt a spark of excitement. The instrument now felt more like a companion, a friend that had guided her through her first big performance. Later that day, Daniel called Anna to meet him at his office. She entered a sleek building full of sunlight and modern furniture. Daniel greeted her warmly and gestured toward a seat. "Anna, I want to discuss some possibilities with you," he said, his expression serious but kind. Anna listened carefully as he explained the interest she had received from several people. Event organizers, music teachers, and even a few local radio stations wanted to feature her. Daniel smiled. "You have talent, Anna. People are noticing it, and it is time to think about how far you want to go." Anna felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had worked hard to reach this point, but the idea of more public performances made her heart race. I don't know if I am ready for so much attention," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "I understand. You have always been humble, and that is one of your greatest strengths, but talent like yours deserves to be shared. You can start slowly, and I will be here to support you." Over the next few weeks, Anna began accepting small invitations. She played at charity events, local gatherings, and even at a small radio studio. Each time, her confidence grew. She learned to manage her nerves and to enjoy the experience of connecting with people through music. The restaurant where she worked became even more special to her. She loved the familiarity of the space, the friendly customers, and the piano she had first returned to years after she had started playing. Even as her music gained recognition, Anna remained humble and kind. She never forgot where she came from. One afternoon, while practicing for an upcoming event, Anna received a letter in the mail. It was from a famous music school in the city, inviting her to join a special program for talented young musicians. Anna's heart leapt. This was an opportunity she had only dreamed of. She could receive training, learn new techniques, and meet other musicians who shared her passion. She shared the news with Daniel, who smiled proudly. "I knew you were capable of great things, Anna. This is just the beginning. With hard work and dedication, you can achieve even more." Anna felt a warm sense of gratitude. She remembered the quiet days at the restaurant, the hours spent practicing alone, and the courage it had taken to play in front of Daniel and the audience. All those moments had led her here. That night, Anna sat by her window and played a soft melody on her piano. The notes were gentle and full of hope. She thought about her future, the people who had supported her, and the opportunities ahead. A sense of determination filled her heart. She knew challenges would come, but she also knew she had the courage and skill to face them. Anna realized that success was not just about talent. It was about dedication, humility, and the willingness to take a chance when an opportunity appeared. She felt proud of herself, not only for her music, but also for the person she was becoming. As the city lights shimmered outside her window, Anna played a final note and smiled. Her journey was just beginning, and she could already feel the excitement of what was to come. The next morning, the training camp was quieter than usual. The young soldiers moved with careful steps, their eyes occasionally drifting toward the old veteran. They no longer laughed or whispered as before. Something about him had changed in their minds. They could sense experience, patience, and a quiet strength that could not be measured by speed or force. During breakfast, one soldier finally gathered courage. "Sir," he said, pointing gently to the tattoo on the veteran's arm, "can you tell us the story behind it? We want to understand." The veteran looked at him. His eyes held memories of long years, challenges faced, and lessons learned. He smiled softly, nodding. "It is a story of service, trust, and a promise," he said. "Not everyone will understand it at first, but it has guided me through many days of my life." The young men leaned in slightly, listening carefully. They had expected a simple answer, a short explanation. Instead, they were about to hear a journey. "Years ago," the veteran began, "I was part of a team. We trained hard every day, and we learned to rely on one another. One day, we faced a challenge that tested everything we knew. It was not about strength alone. It was about loyalty, courage, and the willingness to stand by your friends no matter the cost." The soldiers listened in silence. Each word carried weight. The tattoo, once a symbol of amusement to them, now seemed like a badge of honor. "I got this tattoo the day we completed a mission together," the veteran continued. "It was not just my decision. Every member of my team chose the same mark. It was a promise that we would protect each other, respect each other, and never forget the lessons we learned." It reminded us that true strength comes from trust, not from speed or power. The young soldiers exchanged quiet glances. They had trained for months in the Delta Force, but many had never thought about trust in the same way. They had focused on speed, agility, and competition, believing these made them the best. But the veteran's words made them pause. "Some of you may think it is just a drawing," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But every line on this tattoo has meaning. Every curve represents teamwork. Every shade represents courage. And every symbol is a memory of those who trusted each other in the hardest moments." One young soldier, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Sir, did you lose anyone during that mission?" The veteran nodded slowly. "Yes, we lost good friends. People who trusted us and believed in our promise. That is why the tattoo is important. It is not about the pain or the loss. It is about remembering them and honoring what they stood for." The soldiers looked at him with new respect. The laughter of the past few days seemed foolish now. They realized that they had judged him too quickly. They had mocked something that was deeper than their understanding. The veteran's eyes scanned the group. "I am here not to teach you tricks or show off strength," he said. "I am here to remind you that experience matters, that trust matters, that respect matters. You can have all the speed in the world, but if you forget these lessons, you will never be truly ready." For the first time, the young soldiers felt a quiet admiration. The tattoo was no longer just a mark. It was a story, a history, and a lesson written in ink. They could see now why the veteran had never responded to their teasing. He had known they would learn in their own time that some lessons cannot be rushed. As the morning moved forward, the soldiers went through drills with a new perspective. They watched the veteran closely, following his movements, noticing the care he took in each step. His every action reflected the lessons behind the tattoo, the patience, the trust, and the courage that could not be measured by strength alone. By afternoon, the young soldiers no longer whispered or joked. They had begun to understand the power of experience. They had begun to respect the story behind the tattoo. And they had begun to see that true strength was about more than speed, power, or pride. The old veteran stood quietly at the edge of the field, the sunlight catching the faded ink on his arm. To the young soldiers, it no longer looked like an old drawing. It looked like history, like honor, and like a guide for their own journey in the Delta Force. And deep down, they knew that soon, the lessons of that tattoo would reach far beyond the training camp. They would face a moment when they would remember every word, every line, and every promise behind it. The sun was high in the sky, casting bright light over the training camp. The young soldiers had gathered in the field for another round of exercises. Their energy was high, and their competitive spirit filled the air. Each wanted to prove that they were the fastest, the strongest, and the most capable. The old veteran stood at the edge of the field. He did not rush. He did not speak loudly or shout orders. He simply watched, observing the soldiers as they prepared for the drills. Some of the young men still remembered their jokes from earlier days, but now, the laughter had faded into quiet curiosity. They were beginning to see him differently. The first drill was a simple obstacle course. The soldiers rushed forward, climbing walls, crawling under nets, and leaping over barriers. Their movements were quick and confident, yet a few struggled with the tricky sections. The veteran began at his own steady pace, and at first the younger soldiers ignored him. Then something unexpected happened. One young soldier slipped while climbing a wall. He tumbled slightly, panicked, and almost fell back. The veteran was there in a flash. Without rushing, he reached out his hand and helped the soldier regain balance. The soldier froze in surprise. "How did he move so fast?" whispered one of the other soldiers. "He didn't run. He was calm, but he was exactly where he needed to be," another said, eyes wide. The veteran continued the course, his movements smooth and precise. He did not hurry. Every action was controlled. Every step was measured. He seemed to anticipate where the young soldiers might struggle, and he was always ready to assist without a word. Next came the teamwork drill. Soldiers had to carry heavy equipment across the field while keeping balance and coordination. Some stumbled, dropped the equipment, or argued over the best way to move. The veteran stepped in quietly, showing with simple gestures how to adjust positions and work together. He did not speak much, yet his guidance was clear. The young soldiers started to watch him more closely. They noticed how his hands moved, how his eyes scanned the field, and how he remained calm even under pressure. Slowly, they began to realize that experience was more than knowledge. It was anticipation, patience, and quiet skill. By mid-afternoon, the soldiers had completed several drills. They were tired, sweaty, and breathing heavily, yet their respect for the veteran had grown. The old jokes about the tattoo no longer surfaced. Instead, there was a quiet admiration. They had begun to understand that the veteran's calmness and precision were the result of years of experience, not just luck. During a break, one young soldier approached him. "Sir," he said, pointing to the tattoo, "I think I understand a little now. It's not just a mark. It's a reminder of everything you learned and everyone you worked with." The veteran nodded. "Exactly," he said softly. "Experience teaches patience. It teaches you to notice what others cannot. It teaches you that rushing is not always the best way to win. True strength is knowing when to act and how to help those around you." The young soldier looked at him thoughtfully. "We used to think it was just about speed and power," he admitted. "Now I see it's more than that. It's about skill, trust, and care." The veteran smiled faintly. He did not need to say more. His actions throughout the day had already taught the lesson. The young soldiers had seen it themselves. They had experienced it firsthand. As the day ended, the soldiers gathered their equipment. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The veteran sat quietly on a bench, his arm resting on his knee, the tattoo catching the last rays of sunlight. The young soldiers looked at him with a newfound respect. They realized that some lessons could not be taught with words alone. Some lessons required observation, patience, and understanding. The veteran had given them such a lesson without demanding attention, without raising his voice, and without trying to prove himself. And in the quiet of the evening, the young soldiers knew that the story behind the tattoo and the calm strength of the veteran were more important than any drill, race, or boast. They had learned that true skill was silent yet powerful. The next day, the camp was alive with quiet energy. The young soldiers moved with purpose, but there was a change in the air. The laughter that had once echoed across the training grounds was gone. In its place, there was curiosity and a growing respect. Everyone had watched the old veteran closely over the past days. His calm movements, precise skills, and quiet guidance had made an impression that could not be ignored. During morning exercises, a few soldiers whispered among themselves. "Did you see how he helped Marcus yesterday?" one said, referring to a young man who had nearly fallen during the obstacle course. "Yeah," another replied. "And the way he carried that equipment with the team. He didn't just move fast. He showed them how to do it correctly. I think there's more to him than we thought." The whispers continued to spread. Some soldiers began sharing what they had observed in private conversations, and soon others joined in. They spoke quietly, careful not to seem disrespectful, but their voices carried a sense of awe. The veteran's presence was becoming something more than just a routine part of the camp. During a break, a few soldiers approached each other with cautious curiosity. "Do you think that tattoo means something special?" one asked. "It doesn't look random. There is history behind it, I'm sure of it." "Maybe it's a symbol of a mission he did a long time ago," another suggested. "Or maybe it's part of a group we haven't heard about." Either way, it's not something ordinary. Even the soldiers who had laughed the first day were now silent when they glanced at the veteran. They felt a strange mix of respect and curiosity. They wanted to know more, but they also understood that it was not their place to demand answers. Meanwhile, the veteran continued his work quietly. He moved through the drills with calm precision, helping without being asked. He corrected mistakes gently, showing the correct way to handle equipment, climb obstacles, and coordinate as a team. His actions were teaching lessons that words could not convey. By afternoon, the rumor of the tattoo had reached the younger leaders of the camp. They gathered in small groups, speaking softly. "I've heard the story," one whispered. "They say it is linked to a mission no one talks about anymore. Only the people involved know the full truth." The young soldiers listened, feeling their curiosity deepen. The old jokes and mocking thoughts were completely gone. Instead, there was a quiet sense that the veteran carried something important, something beyond what they could see on the surface. Even the instructors noticed the change. They observed the soldiers watching the veteran more carefully, asking him questions politely and following his guidance. It was clear that the veteran had become a symbol of experience and trust, even without trying. That evening, as the sun began to set, the soldiers gathered near the benches. Some spoke softly about the meaning of the tattoo. Others shared their observations from the day's drills. Every story emphasized the same lesson. The veteran was not just a man from the past. He was a guide, a teacher, and someone who carried wisdom that could not be rushed or forced. The veteran watched them quietly, his eyes calm, his arm resting naturally to show the faded tattoo. He did not interrupt. He knew that the young soldiers needed to come to their own understanding. He had learned long ago that lessons were stronger when discovered, not demanded. And as the sky turned a soft orange and the shadows grew longer across the camp, the young soldiers felt a change inside themselves. The tattoo was no longer just a mark. It was a symbol of trust, courage, and dedication. It was a sign of respect that had been earned through years of service, and now they were beginning to understand the true meaning. For the first time, they realized that sometimes the quietest presence could teach the loudest lesson, and the veteran, with his calm actions and mysterious tattoo, had done just that. The morning air was cool and still. Birds chirped softly as the soldiers prepared for their exercises. Today felt different. There was a sense of anticipation that ran quietly through the camp. The young soldiers moved with extra care, their eyes occasionally drifting toward the old veteran. The stories about his tattoo and past deeds had spread, and curiosity mixed with respect now guided their thoughts. Suddenly, a convoy of vehicles rolled into the camp. Dust rose from the ground as they came to a stop. The soldiers straightened immediately, standing at attention. Rumors had been circulating that a high-ranking officer was visiting, but none of them knew exactly who. The commandant of the camp stepped forward, followed by a man in a crisp uniform. His presence was commanding yet calm. The soldiers instinctively felt the difference. He was a general, and his eyes scanned the entire camp with careful attention. The young soldiers tried to appear confident, but whispers ran quietly among them. "Do you think he will notice the tattoo?" one asked nervously. "Who knows?" replied another. "But we need to make a good impression. Don't mess up anything." The general began his inspection, moving slowly across the field. He observed the drills, asking a few questions along the way. The soldiers performed their exercises with precision, but the tension in the air was noticeable. Everyone wanted to impress him, but no one knew what exactly he was looking for. The old veteran stood slightly apart from the younger soldiers. He did not rush to show skill. He did not try to compete. Instead, he moved calmly, letting his experience guide him. The soldiers noticed his presence, and some felt a quiet reassurance. Even in the midst of tension, he seemed steady, unshaken by the arrival of the general. As the inspection continued, the younger soldiers started to recall the lessons of the past few days. The skills, patience, and calmness of the veteran were not lost on them. They remembered how he had helped during drills, corrected mistakes, and guided them without speaking loudly. Finally, the general approached the veteran. His eyes rested on the man with a sharp interest, and then, slowly, he nodded in acknowledgement. The soldiers held their breath, sensing that something important was about to happen. The general spoke quietly, addressing the veteran. "It has been a long time," he said, his voice steady. "I see the symbol has remained with you all these years." The veteran looked up, meeting the general's gaze. A quiet understanding passed between them. He nodded. "It has," he replied. "It has guided me every day." The young soldiers watched in awe. Their curiosity grew. They had never seen the general show personal recognition like this before. Something about the tattoo, something about the veteran had captured his attention. A few soldiers whispered to each other. "That tattoo must mean something very important," one said. "I think we are about to learn the truth," another replied. His voice low with excitement. The general turned slightly, showing a part of his sleeve. The young soldiers noticed a faint mark, similar to the tattoo on the veteran's arm. Their eyes widened in surprise. The realization struck them slowly. The general, one of the most respected leaders, carried the same mark. The atmosphere in the camp shifted. The young soldiers felt a mixture of astonishment, curiosity, and respect. They could sense the history, the stories, and the bond that the tattoo represented. What had seemed like a simple symbol was now revealed to carry a deeper meaning, connecting the veteran and the general in ways they could not yet fully understand. The veteran remained calm, yet there was a quiet pride in his posture. The young soldiers looked at him differently now. Their earlier mockery had vanished entirely. They had begun to understand that the tattoo was more than ink. It was a sign of trust, courage, and loyalty that spanned years and generations. As the sun climbed higher, the general continued his inspection, but the lesson had already been delivered. The young soldiers had seen a connection between experience, honor, and legacy that they could never forget. And in that moment, the tattoo that once invited laughter had become a symbol of respect, a silent story of dedication, and a reminder of the values that the Delta Force upheld above all. The camp was quiet in the late afternoon. The young soldiers gathered near the training grounds, still feeling the weight of the morning's events. The arrival of the general had shifted their perspective. What had once been a casual place of competition now felt like a stage for lessons far greater than speed or strength. The veteran stood calmly, his faded tattoo visible under the sleeve of his shirt. The young soldiers could not take their eyes off him. They remembered the stories he had shared, the silent guidance he had offered during drills, and now the recognition from the general. Their curiosity was almost unbearable. The general stepped closer to the veteran, moving with steady authority. The soldiers instinctively straightened, sensing that the moment was important. Without a word, the general slowly rolled up his sleeve, revealing the same tattoo as the veteran's. It was clear, precise, and carried the same symbol. The soldiers' eyes widened in surprise. The general's voice was calm but strong. "This mark," he said, pointing to the tattoo, "represents more than service. It represents loyalty, courage, and a promise. A promise to stand by those who depend on you and to honor the people who have come before you." The young soldiers looked at each other in amazement. They had never seen the general speak like this before. His words were simple, but the meaning was powerful. The tattoo was no longer just ink. It was history, a connection between generations and a symbol of trust that could not be broken. The veteran nodded slowly. "Many years ago," he said, "this symbol was given to those who faced challenges that required more than strength. It was given to those who could protect, guide, and inspire others in ways that would shape the future." One soldier, still trying to process the revelation, asked quietly, "Sir, does that mean the tattoo is like a badge of honor?" The general smiled faintly. "Yes, but it is not earned by winning races or being the fastest. It is earned by trust, respect, and courage. It is earned by showing dedication even when no one is watching, and by helping others rise above challenges." The young soldiers felt a deep sense of respect. Their earlier laughter, their teasing, and their doubts seemed trivial compared to the weight of what they were witnessing. The tattoo was a story, a lesson, and a symbol that connected the veteran, the general, and now them, in a way that they could barely understand but would never forget. The veteran spoke again, his voice calm and steady. "I wear this tattoo to remember the people who stood by me and the lessons they taught. It reminds me that strength is not just in the body, but in the heart and mind. It reminds me that honor is shown in actions, not words." The general looked at the young soldiers, his gaze firm yet kind. "You are all here to learn, not just to train. Remember this symbol. Remember the lessons it represents. Respect those who came before you, trust those who stand beside you, and carry their values with you in every challenge you face." The young soldiers stood silently. Some felt a lump in their throats. They had come to the camp eager to show skill, but now they understood that skill alone was not enough. Respect, trust, and honor were far more important. As the sun began to set, the veteran and the general stood side by side. Their tattoos caught the last light of the day, glowing faintly but clearly. The young soldiers knew that they were witnessing something rare and meaningful. They realized that the laughter and mockery of the past had no place here. This moment was about history, courage, and the lessons that could guide their own future. The soldiers looked at the veteran and the general with admiration and quiet understanding. They knew they would carry this lesson with them long after the drills were over. The tattoo was no longer just a mark. It was a story of loyalty, courage, and the power of respect. And in that moment, the young soldiers finally understood. True strength was not measured by speed or power alone. It was measured by the heart, the mind, and the legacy left behind. The evening sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink. The training camp was quiet. The drills had ended, and the young soldiers gathered near the benches. The events of the day had left a strong impression on all of them. The arrival of the general, the revelation of the tattoo, and the stories shared by the old veteran filled their minds with new understanding. For days, They had mocked and doubted the veteran. They had laughed at the faded tattoo, thinking it was unimportant. Now everything had changed. The symbol they had once ridiculed had become a mark of honor, courage, and respect. The veteran sat calmly on a bench, his eyes scanning the field. The young soldiers approached him one by one. They wanted to speak, to ask questions, and to express their admiration. Each step they took was careful, respectful, and thoughtful. One young soldier spoke first. "Sir, I am sorry for laughing at your tattoo before. I didn't understand its meaning, and I see now that it represents so much more than I imagined." The veteran smiled gently. "It is all right. Learning respect takes time. The important thing is that you understand it now." Another soldier stepped forward. "Sir, your guidance during drills was incredible. You helped us without ever raising your voice. We learned more from you than we realized." The veteran nodded. "True strength comes from experience, patience, and trust. It is not shown by rushing or boasting. It is shown by helping others and doing what is right even when no one is watching." The young soldiers listened carefully, each absorbing the lesson in their own way. They had spent years training, believing that speed, power, and pride were the measures of success. Now they understood that respect, loyalty, and dedication were even more important. The general stepped forward and addressed the group. "This tattoo," he said, showing the symbol on his arm once again, "represents values that every soldier should carry. Loyalty, courage, and respect are the foundation of service. Remember this mark, and let it guide your actions." The soldiers felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. They realized that the lessons they had learned today were not just about drills or exercises. They were lessons that would guide them in every challenge, every mission, and every choice they made. As the sun lowered behind the hills, the veteran and the general walked slowly together. The young soldiers followed, their steps quieter now, their minds filled with thought. They looked at the tattoos once more, understanding that they were more than just marks. They were symbols of history, promise, and the values that connected generations of soldiers. Later, as the camp prepared for the evening, the soldiers gathered in small groups to discuss what they had learned. They shared stories of how the veteran's calm presence had helped them, how his guidance had improved their skills, and how the revelation of the tattoo had changed their perspective. One young soldier said softly, "I understand now. Being a soldier is not just about strength. It's about honor, trust, and respect. That tattoo shows all of that, and I will remember it always." Another added, "We should carry these lessons in every drill, every mission, and in our daily lives. True strength is in the heart, not just the body." The veteran watched silently, a quiet pride in his eyes. The young soldiers had learned the lesson. They had grown, not just as fighters, but as individuals who understood the deeper meaning of service. As night fell and the stars appeared in the sky, the camp was peaceful. The young soldiers felt a new sense of purpose. They had been tested in ways they had not expected, and they had learned a lesson that would stay with them forever. The tattoo, once mocked, had become a symbol of legacy, honor, and wisdom. It connected the old veteran, the general, and the young soldiers in a way that words alone could not express. And in that quiet evening, the young soldiers knew they would never forget the lesson. Respect, trust, and courage were the true marks of strength. The veteran and the general looked at each other, sharing a quiet understanding. The lesson had been delivered, the respect had been earned, and the story of the tattoo would continue through the hearts of those who had learned it. The young soldiers had finally understood.